Hi, and thank you for listening. This is Sherry Andrea, and I'm glad you could join me again. If you're a new listener, thank you for listening. Today I'm going to be talking about the title of this is um, Someone Else's Lesson Has Nothing to Do with You. Now, this isn't against you, this isn't against anyone. Um, this is basically just a little lesson that I think that most people can relate to. This isn't something that's at a certain particular level that you would need what I'm going to be talking about. This is no matter what level you're at and no matter what you're working on. Okay, first of all, let me give a little quick brief rundown just so that as I go into explaining it, we're all on the same page. Okay, so um, now some of this stuff you can meditate on and you can grasp later if you need to with your higher self in meditation. Okay, first of all, we all made the choice to come here. We weren't sent here, we weren't made to come here, we made the choice to come here and to play a certain role in this lifetime as we did in every other lifetime. We also made agreements with people to get them to play roles in our life. So we actually did make an agreement with and did like request that um, parents, siblings, friends, the guy that robs you at the ATM. We actually ask people to play certain roles in our life and carry out certain experiences, events, etc., etc., so that we could get a lesson from it. Um, so I just want to catch you up to speed with that. Okay, we're all on the same page. Okay, so we're here in this lifetime, in all our life, we've been having experiences. From day one, we've been having experiences. Um, some had really tough experiences just starting out in life. Some were in situations where, at a very young age, they were in an abusive environment, whether physically or sexually, but they were in an abusive environment and started out early on dealing with some really tough things that they then had to try to learn something from it, try to gain some understanding, to then try to transcend it and overcome it and heal themselves from it. These are all these experiences we have. They're lessons. Now, I do psychic readings every now and then. And even though I'm not really into people using psychic readings to live their life, um, it's okay. Many people are trying to use it to try when they get stuck. They're having a hard time figuring out how to make certain decisions in their life. And when they get stuck, sometimes they will use psychic reading and use that insight that they've gained to decide what choices they're going to make in their life, knowing that they're trying to head in this direction versus this one. Um, Often during psychic readings, what I get a lot is basically, you know, I get that people are not pleased with some things that happened in their life, of course. If you lost your job, of course, you may not be happy with that. And maybe your focus is basically on what happened to you, how it affected you, your perspective, um, why you didn't like it, why it was a bad experience to you. However, the bottom line is what happened to you. Maybe that had to happen because you came here with the intention to learn certain things, and maybe it was a part of one of your lessons. So when it comes to lessons, I don't like some people. There are some people that are controlling and they want to tell other people, they want to say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, because then this wouldn't have had to happen. Well, basically that's like saying um you should go through life trying to avoid all bad situations and bad things from happening to you, and you shouldn't ever want to make a bad decision. Well, then you wouldn't learn. If everything went along smoothly, perfectly, what would you learn from it? You wouldn't learn anything. And that's the point, is that in life, you're here in school in a way. You're in school and you should be very focused on your own schoolwork, your own self, your experiences, your lessons. Every now and then, I'll read an article, a blog post someone wrote about something that they discovered, and I think that's awesome. It's awesome when you've come to some new level of understanding and then you write about it so that you could share that with others, and maybe it'll help them come to some new understanding. Maybe they've already come to this new understanding, but maybe they couldn't figure it out as clearly and as well as you put it, so it kind of helps them put all the pieces together so that they can say, oh, I get it now. I get why I've been thinking this way about this or this way about that. Yeah, totally, I agree with what this person is saying. So it is helpful. However, some people, unfortunately, will have these lessons and experiences, turn around, having learned from it, to then basically start poking at everybody else that hasn't learned it yet. Now, they don't get anything out of it. Their ego does, but they don't realize that. They don't realize that really it's their ego making them do that, and they're basically feeding it. Now, really, that person that goes ahead and writes that article, either they have um, realized what they're doing and have instead made the choice to go ahead and do it anyway, which we can do that. We can realize that a part of what is causing us to want to share something is our ego, and still make the choice to do it anyway, even understanding that. Or they may not understand that. They may be so focused on this new thing, this new understanding that they've learned and they have attained, that they don't even realize what is pushing them or kind of pulling them by the nose hairs to write this information, to share this information, is actually some part of their ego that has them wanting to put this out there in a way that like pokes everybody else that hasn't gained that understanding yet. Now, the reason why I said that this is titled Other People's Lessons Have Nothing to Do with You is because that's exactly right. If you have gained a new understanding from a lesson and experience that you've been through, that is for you. So if you read an article, or like something that recently happened to me was that I wrote a blog post about Archangel Metatron, giving a little bit of information about him and then recommending people read the book of Enoch. And there was a point to my writing about Archangel Metatron. Okay, some people don't really get into angels, and that's fine. Just like some people don't get into organized religion, that's fine. You know, but I had a point to the article I wrote, and if you read the whole thing, I think that you'd pretty much get the gist of what I was trying to get at. And my reason for writing about this, an archangel, particularly this archangel, and in the end, recommending a book for you to read, the book of Enoch, because me writing about Archangel Metatron, um, it had to do with more than meets the eye. This was more than just, oh, she's into angels, or, she follows the whole angel and ascended masters thing. Um, if you meditated on it, you would have gotten to an understanding that there was more to it than that. But on the surface, yeah, somebody who hasn't, raised their vibrations and hasn't, gotten to a point where maybe they can meditate on something to get a higher level of understanding, just taking what's on the surface, it may appear that I'm just simply writing about, archangels and, oh, I'm one of those people that are into angels and stuff, angels and unicorns. Um, but there's more to it. So now I got this person commenting on the blog, and I'm sure that they're a very nice person. I'm absolutely sure, and I'm sure that they thought they had a really good intention. So they make a comment on on my blog, and I'm gonna read it to you. It said, I came across an article I wanted to share with you, and the article was titled Why I Am No Longer a Light Worker. Right away, as I was reading the article, um, I could tell how almost convoluted everything was coming out when the person wrote it. And I'm not saying that to try to be negative. Actually, I can remember a time when I was starting to get more information coming up to the surface from my higher self. And I was being flooded with it to the point where I couldn't write it out fast enough. And sometimes so much would be coming up that just to write like one blog post, one article would end up being very convoluted, very confused, because it's almost like so much information was being squeezed in this small space because so much was coming to the surface and faster than I could really process it, get it down on paper. And so I could tell that almost right away that that's what was happening. And there was a lot of information in it about, it was basically doubting, it was like why I'm not a light worker anymore. And the premise was because the fight light against dark is negative in itself, and basically tells people you've got to worship one or the other. That's really actually not the case. The fight against light versus dark actually has nothing to do with an entity. It is basically the fight against light or darkness is about what side are you going to be on. And I don't mean what side as in, don't think of it as in we're talking two armies. That would just be only metaphorically speaking. So side light versus dark, that's more a metaphor. So when you hear that and you think, it sounds kind of like, there's two factions. Well, yeah, because it's kind of like on the surface saying light versus dark, which side are you going to be on? It makes it sound like there are two factions, when in fact, that is not what it means at all. It means you have to make a clear cut decision eventually. Which road are you going to take? Are you going to take the right road? Or are you going to take the left road? At the fork, when you finally get to it, which road are you going to take? And in fact, it is important. It does make a difference. And there is such a thing as light versus dark. So even in this article, this person tried to even explain that there was no such thing. Don't even believe in, there is no such thing. There's no darkness versus any light. And um, the thing is, this happens sometimes you're beginning to open up more to your higher self. More of your higher self is starting to be able to come through and come to the surface. And in the beginning, you've got a lot coming through, but it's still, you're getting pieces. You haven't gotten the whole thing yet. And unfortunately, many of us, we just get so excited that we don't really wait. We don't wait, and we don't say, you know what, I'm going to keep meditating and see what more comes through. No, we run right over to the computer and we start blogging about it because we're just so excited, you know? And often we are doing it at a time when we haven't gotten the whole thing. We've just gotten pieces coming to the surface. We haven't gotten the whole understanding. So now here's this person basically poking at me. I guess she assumed, I don't know what in my article made it seem like I was a light worker, because I'm not. I don't identify with that. But somehow, something about reading my article, I guess, brought some things up within her, which is fine. I mean, that's supposed to happen. Um, but for some reason, she basically wants me to acquiesce to somebody else's lesson. You can't do that. That's that other person's lesson. The person that wrote the article, Why I'm No Longer a Light Worker, they wrote it from their perspective. It was about their experience and about a lesson that they learned, that they went through. Their lesson. It wasn't mine. It was theirs. I learned that same lesson. I just didn't learn it in the same way. My experience that I had that taught me that lesson was different. Why? Because it was my own. You really can't bow down to somebody else's lesson. And really, you can't poke somebody else with your lesson. You may have learned it and you may want to share that. You may want to scream from the top of a mountain, you're all being foolish. Stop doing this, stop doing that. But you can't do that because everybody gets to learn in their own time. Many people may not have learned what she learned. And they may not. They may be guided in a different way, in a different direction, and in their own time. You cannot put down somebody for the level they're at. It's almost like me saying you have to respect them for the level they're at. Don't crucify them for the level they're not at. Whether they're at a higher level or lower level than you. It's like don't hate them for the level they reside at. Because you yourself once were at that level. And some people gave you the respect and the opportunity to learn at your own pace and to get your lessons and learn from them in the time that you needed to, in your own time frame. And respectfully, we have to give that to other people as well. As we're learning, we have to remember we were once there too. And we were given the opportunity to learn our lesson in whatever amount of time it took. Even if it's stubborn, we were stubborn and it took us a long time. We were given that right, and we have to give that right to others as well. You may not like things that other people do, especially people who are in your life. You may not like action that they take, decisions that they make, but they are taking action for the level they're at and for the level of understanding they're at. And you kind of have to let them. You have to let them exist for who they are and what they are at the time. They can't act, a person can't act any differently. They can only act for the level they are at. And respectfully, if you want to keep earning the respect from everyone to allow you to go down your path in your own time, however you need to, then you've got to be able to also give that respect. So just keep in mind, as you're reading things and you're reading things that are based on other people's experiences, keep in mind that's not your experience and that wasn't your lesson. You may be meant to learn it in a different way and in a different time. Lessons also don't go in, like, they're not in an orderly fashion where everybody starts at lesson 1A and then goes to 1B and then 1C. And this isn't like kindergarten through 12th grade where we know we're all starting at kindergarten and going first, second, third, fifth, sixth. No. Spiritual advancement is, and how we learn and how we advance and how we grow, is quantum. It is not laid out in an organized fashion. It is not linear. It is more in a jumble. So when you were new starting out on the path, you may have started at lesson 6C. Somebody else may have started out at 1B. And where you finished up was all different. And there was no right or wrong, because on the spiritual path, it is very unique. And how you go along the spiritual path is unique to each soul. So you have to have it's hard when you've reached a level where you've gained so much understanding, but unfortunately, you haven't worked that much on compassion, understanding, acceptance. It can be difficult sometimes when some of these bigger lessons haven't been worked on. It is really tough, and it is very possible. I was just reading someone's article that they'd written about this. Actually, it was a book. In the It's called Self Healing Handbook. Awesome book. Whether you're beginning, in the middle, advanced, doesn't matter where you're at. This book can help anyone. It's free. It's a free download. So if you search it on the internet, it's by, I think it's Clive Hetherington, I think his name is. Um, Awesome. It will help you. So if you can find it, it's called the Self Healing Handbook. But I was reading something there, and he was actually explaining how it is very possible to reach a very high level, spiritual level, even enlightenment. How there are lots of people who've reached enlightenment and they still haven't resolved certain issues. Like they haven't resolved all their fear issues with fear. It is very possible to reach enlightenment and still be having issues here and there with your negative ego. It is very quite possible to reach enlightenment and still have issues, sometimes with, um, acceptance. Um, so you have to understand, the path forward. It's not linear, it's not clear cut, it's different for anyone and everyone, and you could end up skipping around and literally not learn some things, not gain some understandings that are really important, and then start sharing and teaching when you're at a place where you maybe haven't even worked on having the right amount of compassion and understanding for others along their path. So it is very important, like I said, to remember as you're reading what other people, even as you're reading what I've written, remember things are based on my experiences. Um, they're based on my lessons and how I learned them. For you, it might be different. It'll give you some insight still, it'll help you still, but you do have to remember that it's based on someone else's lesson, and that's not your lesson. Your lesson is going to be unique to you, and how you get through the lesson and finally pass your test, that's going to be totally unique to you. And it can't be compared with how somebody else did it. Um, if you still have a belief that a lot of people are saying, oh, you shouldn't have this belief, but you haven't let it go yet, and that's still a truth for you. Um, that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that that's just something you haven't worked on yet. You'll get to it when it's your time to get to it. The the divine may have a reason why you're going to work on that later. There may be a reason. We may not understand what the reason is, but that's when you have to trust how this all works. You have to trust how us moving along our path and advancing works, the nature of it and everything. You have to be able to trust in it. The person that wrote that article about why I'm no longer a light worker, they're just beginning to, in a basic way, understand not identifying with things. However, they're not exactly at a Muji or Osho or Dada Bhagwan level of understanding the knowledge and understandings of about identity. They're just beginning to grasp it, and unfortunately, before they grasp enough of the pieces, they've already spoken out. But that's okay, because we're always in a state of change, and wherever you're at right now and whatever level of understandings you have, guess what? Don't get too attached to them, because they're going to continue to morph and grow, because you're going to continue to uncover higher and higher divine levels of it. Like I said, the spiritual advancement is more quantum than anything, and you keep peeling back layers and you keep uncovering more. You're like, oh, okay, I learned about this, but now it's just like I pulled back a new layer on this and some new things popped out, that we're now I've got an understanding at even a deeper level. And you've got to understand that's going to continue to happen. So don't be ready to crucify anybody with what you've gotten out of your lessons, because you may just get down the road a little bit and then feel a little bad that you did that, because now you just gain an even huger understanding, and you awaken even a little bit more and realize that you spoke too soon. So I hope this has helped you, because with all the information out there, with everybody writing, everybody having something to say, I do think it's important to remind yourself that's their lesson. I haven't learned that yet, but that's only because it's not my time yet. I will get to that when it's my time. You don't have to feel that you have to drop everything to work on that because of somebody else's timing. No, you've got your own timing. Your path is a solitary path. Look to both sides of you. There's nobody walking that path with you. So, no, just because somebody else has learned that lesson, passed that test, and you haven't yet, doesn't mean drop everything right now and do it. No, that was their experience. That's how they came into this lifetime, meaning to learn it and when they meant to learn it. That's not about you. That's about them and their lesson. Keep your eyes on your own paper and you'll do just fine. Keep your focus within yourself and within that guidance that you are being given, and you'll always do just fine. Thank you for listening, and I really hope that this was helpful. If you're looking for me, you can always find me at sherryspeaks.com. If you are looking for Reiki attunements, you can